Hello, Wayside. I'm Stephen. One of the things this stay-at-home work-safe order has done is make me realize how much I miss the relationships we have. I miss the handshakes, the smiles, the laughter. I miss the prayer and worship together. I miss being together, and I know you do too. As we look at our Easter devotional today, we're going to see Jesus do something very intimate and relationship defining, something the disciples would no doubt come to cherish. John tells us that before the feast of the Passover, Jesus knew he was going back to the Father and that he had loved his disciples to the end. Custom would have it that when they gathered, a servant washed the feet of those at the table prior to dinner. John tells us that during dinner, Jesus gets up, removes his garments, wraps himself in a towel, and begins to wash the disciples' feet. In doing so, he displayed a great act of humble service. So what did washing the disciples' feet do in the lives of the disciples that night? Well, let's focus on a few of them today. It bolstered their faith. Jesus washed their feet to leave them with an indelible impression. He was clear that they wouldn't understand everything now, but that they would later. He also identifies one of them as having an unclean heart. It also answered the questions the disciples were having after Jesus announced one would betray him. John doesn't tell us this, but Luke tells us that during supper, the disciples began to talk about who it was that would betray him. A dispute even arose among them about who was the greatest. Can you imagine? In the middle of Jesus' explanation of his sacrifice for the sins of the world and his betrayal, the disciples began talking about who would be the greatest. What a moment. What a time to talk about position, power, and authority. But Jesus turned it into a powerful moment to teach servanthood. Jesus contrasted greatness that influences from position and power with greatness that influences from service and sacrifice. It modeled servanthood also. Jesus affirms that he, while being in the position of authority, has chosen to serve in the position of the lowly. Jesus' first coming was not to be king and conqueror as the disciples pictured it, but to be suffering servant as Isaiah predicted it. The key phrase is this: if I, the Lord and teacher, washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet, for I gave you an example. The condition Jesus sets up is this: if the greater serves the lesser, then the lesser should serve one another. The disciples were stunned. What do you think about this passage? Are you stunned Jesus stooped so low? Here's a few questions for us today. Knowing who Jesus is, how does his humble service bolster your faith? What needs to change for you to learn to live from service and sacrifice rather than power and position? How could you model the kind of servanthood Jesus had today? And what would that look like given our current circumstances? I'm looking forward to being together again, Wayside. I miss y'all. I love y'all. Happy Easter.